Can China beat the US at AI? There's no better person in the world to answer this question than Dylan Patel, founder and CEO of SemiAnalysis and the world's leading expert in semiconductors and AI infrastructure. Today we'll be taking him through a push workout and we'll be finishing off with the world famous Chestmaxxer challenge, max push-ups in 60 seconds. This is Swallows a Service, and we're proudly presented by Factory, the only software development agents that work everywhere you do.
Today we're going to be pressing a little bit, actually. We're going to be starting off with some chest press, going to be doing some shoulder press. I think we might actually want to do some leg press. Of course, following that up with the
Chestmaxxer challenge.
Liam Fettis is on top with 73.
If I get half, I'll be happy.
I think half is pretty good. Like, Liam beats me, right? And I'm the fucking host of the show. We're going to be talking about, AI, US versus China. You might know a thing or two about this sort of thing.
I think so. I don't know much about, creatine or steroids or anything else, but
bring the guest in immediately lobs allegations at me. So we can take this up with my legal team. So basically, we're just kind of like trying to get just the shoulders warmed up. You have done side lateral raises before?
I have.
I figured, yeah.
Not as many as you have, because you are a specimen.
I was fishing for that a bunch. So we're just kind of like getting everything warm. It's an easy way to warm up the rotator cuffs. There's no rep range to these. It's just kind of like do whatever feels good. Do whatever feels good, so we're warming up. And
nothing feels good.
That's in 12 months when we don't have jobs.
Oh, yes.
What is SemiAnalysis, your company? What does it even do? I mean, something to do with chips and AI and stuff. But you probably got a better explanation for that than I do.
Basically just try and, my goals in life are to know everything, have fun, and make money. And so SemiAnalysis is exactly these things, right? We try and track the entire supply chain from tools that manufacture chips, fabs, data centers, energy, industrials, and then AI models and who's using them, how much, and where. And then we try and track not just the supply chain aspect of it all, but also the technology bets people are making, where there's differentiation. And a third of my company comes from a engineering background. Another third of the company is ex-hedge fund. And then the other third of the company is just passionate autists. And we've put them all together in a room. There's 70 of us globally.
Yeah, they're just like me for real. Flat dumbbell chest press. I think the thing that people kind of, they get scared of laying all the way back. I mean, I know that's like when I started doing flat dumbbell chest press, I was like, well, this is like a long way to fall back. I find that the easiest way to get the weights in position, basically kicking my knees all the way back and following the weight. So my knees kind of end up here, but the weights are already in position. This is a great point of safety for those that are learning how to lift. Nice. Good. 3, good. 4, nice.
I've never done this knee thing though, that's interesting.
These are the tricks of the trade after going non-verbal in front of women for 9 years. My mum, she all the time thinks about open source versus closed source models. She has no idea what that means. But basically, open source versus closed source, this is in regards to US versus China. Where do you sort of sit on this spectrum? What do you think about the whole open source versus closed source debate?
I think I have as many thoughts about this as you have on weightlifting.
Yeah. So not much.
Not much. Man's empty. I think open source versus closed source is a very complicated question, right? Of course, I would wish open source wins because closed source is kind of bad. It's the tyranny of concentration of resources. There's only a few companies that make closed source models that are good.
You risk regulatory capture, all of these different words that people say in the
you end up with all power conglomerates to just a few entities, and that's not good for the future. So of course I love open source. Unfortunately, open source is pretty poorly positioned. The Chinese labs, they were previously super focused on open source. They did really well, and they were only 6 months behind, partially because they're distilling a lot from the leading models, right? They're using the crap out of Claude and OpenAI, pumping those tokens into their models to push, towards the end, so they can get the models tuned similar to what the leading closed source models. Right now, you give it a question, it answers, right? At least that's on chat. If you go look at Codex or Claude Code, you give it a question, it thinks for a while, and then it gives the answer. In the case of OpenAI, they don't show you the whole reasoning chain. In the case of Anthropic, they do. But over time, you move towards everything being a closed reasoning chain. And then as the horizon of AI models gets longer, right? Rather than a question answer immediately, the question answer becomes 10 minutes, hours, days. The value of all the reasoning is gone. So then you can't just train on question and answer. You need to have the thought process there. And without that, the Chinese models won't be able to stay up. And then the other thing is on the economic side, Chinese companies don't make any money from open sourcing models. The Chinese labs are going to slowly stop open sourcing everything.
Sure.
And so between distillation being harder, harder, Chinese labs not wanting to open source everything, the field of open source AI is going to get more and more constricted. And right now you're 3 to 6 months behind, but it's the closest it's ever been. It's going to start lagging again.
Good place to move to here. Do a little bit of seated dumbbell shoulder press. Again, we don't have to go super heavy on this. Shoulders pinned back together. You're just pressing up. Of course, this is going to hit your front delts a little bit more. Up, good. 2, really nice. 3, nice. 4, good, come on. Are you concerned at all about like IP theft, right? Like models being stolen by a foreign actor, right?
IP theft is a broad range of things, right?
It's definitely a thing in tech.
It's a thing in tech, it's a broad range of things, right? There is as obvious and plain as just stealing the model weights. Taking those model weights, running the model on your own infrastructure.
And so I guess for the audience, like what is a model weight?
An AI model consists of hundreds of billions or trillions of numbers, and you just multiply them in the correct order. Simple as that.
Perfect.
And so if you take that and you steal it, then you have the AI model, right? It's like you stole the brain out of the system. When you have stolen the model weights and then you run it on your own chips, all of a sudden you have the brains of the system. There's only a few thousand people who work in AI that actually know what the hell's going on. It doesn't take much to subvert these 20s or young 30s men who do nothing but code all day into telling you the things that matter.
I know where he's going with this.
And so it happens from many angles, right? It could be Chinese models, it could be American models, it could be Israeli models, it could be Russian models. And it was proven there was this whole like Russian model that stole IP from various startups in the Bay, right? Like this is like some case that's happening right now. IP theft can come among many different ways. It's a tale as old as time, right? The Americans stole the British IP in the 1800s and early 1900s. And then America out-innovated them. And China did the same in many areas. They stole a lot of IP from across the world. And then once they had that IP, they out-innovated us on many different areas. This is a big risk with AI as well.
Of course. Any Chinese or Russian models, looking for AI secrets, just send them to the podcasters instead.
So it's either I get a girlfriend or I'm gay. In February. Okay, so I've just stepped outside between sets here real quick. I just wanted to say that everyone in this gym, they kind of understand progressive overload. They just want to get stronger. A lot of the time, that actually means adding weight. The same kind of thing is happening in software right now. So every team bought AI coding tools. Every individual dev uses AI coding tools, but the organizational throughput, it's flat. They keep adding more reps, but they don't keep adding more weight. Factory AI is the solution to add more weight. So it's the platform with AI agents called droids, and they work autonomously, taking entire workloads off of your plate. The code review in your CI pipeline, multi-day projects where your droids execute autonomously and you can just return to a finished product. So any terminal or any IDE with any model, no lock-in. Use Factory AI. Go ahead and get stronger.
So, at this stage of the workout, how are we feeling? Kind of thinking towards the
Chestmaxxer challenge.
Feels good. I'm still nervous. I want to be able to beat at least one of my 2 roommates. I know I won't touch Liam, but if I can beat one of my roommates, I'll be happy.
You wanted to do leg press, right?
Yeah. I get one thing where I look strong.
Yeah. Perfect. I love the crisp sound of the metal weights. Ah, that's anabolic. Wait, ready for it? Oh. Okay, so leg press, pretty self-explanatory. You get in and you press with your legs. And one thing to keep in mind, you never should lock out your knees. You go as far as you can before lockout, but you never fully lock. So when it comes to China versus the US, of course, I think the top of mind for a lot of people, including those that are not in tech, is what happens if something happens to Taiwan, right? You have TSMC, right? Literally stands for Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. Sounds like they might be based in Taiwan.
Chinese Taipei Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. CTSMC.
What happens to the supply chain if, for example, there's like a hard takeover of Taiwan?
There's a variety of actions that could happen. One is just you have them blockade Taiwan. 2 is that you have them instill some sort of political coup using language models to interfere in elections in a way that we've never seen elections interfere. And 3 is just a good old-fashioned takeover, right? If and when that happens.
Yes.
The big risk is, okay, we no longer have a semiconductor industry, at least a large chunk of it. Taiwan manufactures over 95% of leading edge semiconductors today, but even the stuff that's 10 years old, Taiwan still manufactures like half of it. That goes away.
Yeah.
The fridge, the air compressor on it, the temperature monitoring. Of course, you talk about your AI servers, you talk about your CPU servers, you talk about your storage servers, you talk about all these things. Of course, those are all fabbed by TSMC, at least the logic part of it is, and in many cases manufactured by Taiwanese companies, right? Like Foxconn and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So you end up with this like massive supply chain like pause. Immediately nothing happens besides markets free fall. But within 6 months, everything starts to dry out. You have no more supply of all of these things that I mentioned.
Yes.
AI chips, CPU servers, but not just those. Cars, radios, fridges, all of these sorts of things start to go away. And then you fast forward 2-3 years down the road, the economy has fallen a lot. Estimates by some put it at as much as 20% in the year that it happens.
Yeah.
And then subsequently, that sends the world into a depression, right?
Yeah,
the
of
world
course.
has not experienced a 20% free fall since maybe like one of the great wars.
You could go back to COVID, but that was, you could sort of think of that as like pretty quick, right? It's like at least in the markets, right?
And fiscal stimulus was able to solve that problem because it was really just like people stopped going to work, they went home, but they still worked from home, and then you injected money in the system and it was fine.
Yes, whereas
this you can't really inject money in the system and have chips come from thin air. It would take 5 to 8 years of all of the world's tool manufacturing capability to even replace the capacity in Taiwan. So this is economy tanks, and it like at best is at equilibrium 5 to 8 years later. But in reality, because of that big depression, you've like set off all these issues, the world is levered up on debt, all these things. It may take a decade or two before you get to even similar levels. On top of that, you stack the fact that all of the new growth that was gonna happen doesn't happen. You've set back human society a lot. And then lastly, China now has the most advanced semiconductor industry without Taiwan. Because China has a vertical supply chain. Yes, in many cases it's 15 years behind, 10 years behind, in some cases only 3 years behind, but at least they have it fully self-sufficient, whereas the US doesn't. And so you've got this like real, not just shock to the economy, but now China is the least affected by these, even though they import most of Taiwan's semiconductors, make them into consumer goods and sell them. So they'd be affected pretty badly, but at least they have a vertical supply chain to start off from. And now they're ahead of the West, and then you step forward a few years, it's like, okay, what industry does China not own? There's only 3 industries they don't own. Semiconductors, it's AI, and it's aerospace engines, right? It's those 3 things. And so 2 of those fall at once, right? You no longer have semiconductors, so you no longer have AI leadership in America. And then, who cares about airplane engines, right?
Well, I think on that note, I think it's a good time to move into what everybody's been waiting for.
Chestmaxxer Challenge.
So it's time for Swallow as a Service Chestmaxxer Challenge, max push-ups in 60 seconds. Let's see how Dylan does here. 3, 2, 1, go. So, Parmalaki, founder of Anduril Industries, recently commented on the AI arms race, saying the United States is ahead, but the lead on China is extremely small because China has done a very good job of distilling our models, copying a lot of our technology, leveraging open source AI advancements, and getting those advancements into fielding much faster than the United States has. At a Senate hearing on May 8, 2025, Sam Altman testified, urging lawmakers that this future can be almost unimaginably bright, but only if we take concrete steps to ensure that an American-led version of AI built on democratic values like freedom and transparency prevails over an authoritarian one. The stakes could not be higher, and Congress is right that the United States must lead the way. In a Time article, Jared Cohen, the president of global affairs at Goldman Sachs, writes, China's centralized political system focused on control is prioritizing AI diffusion from driverless cars and the Internet of Things to consumer applications and robots. These are sometimes competing objectives, but they converge. China's models grow more capable as they diffuse, and Beijing is simultaneously pursuing AGI. So, Dylan, can China beat the US at AI?
Yes, America will win. Why do I think the US will win? I think the US will win because American ingenuity is what we're all here for.
Of course.
You're Australian, I'm Indian, but none of that matters, we're American.
Right.
Because we love the Star-Spangled Banner, we love the Constitution.
Holy shit. That made me fucking cry.
We hold all these truths self-evident. And it's true that America is the greatest country that's ever been made.
Right, we wouldn't be here otherwise.
And so I think American ingenuity, the freedom that we have and the creativity that we have will let us win this path. Now, of course, there's logical reasons, right? We've got the linchpin on the best semiconductors in the world. We've got the linchpin on the best models in the world, and these two will beget each other. And over time, as long as there's no Taiwan invasion, we will have this like S-curve or hockey stick of growth that will let us win.
Yeah. I mean, sounds good to me. That's a future that I can get behind.
So happy to announce that Dylan Patel, founder and CEO of SemiAnalysis, Chestmaxxer Challenge, 53 push-ups in 60 seconds. Have you got a message for your roommates, Sholto and Dorkesh? Anything you'd like to relay to them here in this moment?
You know, I thought they were the athletic ones, right? Dorkesh is built, Sholto was an Olympian-level athlete, and yet here I am, the fucking overweight, scrawny guy.
Wow.